Hello everyone, how's it going? Welcome to today's Wild Rift video. It's a Friday, it's a Saturday, wherever you are in the world, this can only mean one thing. We're going to get our first look at patch 3.4a, which should be releasing around Tuesday or Wednesday next week. This is like their preview. This doesn't include the full patch notes, so the full patch notes might include some other changes, but it's a nice little preview to see what's coming up in the near future. So let's basically head straight into it. Champion buffs. The first champion buff is going to be Camille. Now, I still think Camille has been relatively strong in the meta, even after, I think, 4 or 5 nerfs in a row, each consistent every single patch. But now they're starting to buff her. They're going to start to buff her again, and they're going to try and bring her back into the meta more, because I think she gets picked in certain situations, but she's not picked in every single game, especially in competitive. So the base health per level is going from 115 to 120. So she's basically just getting 5 health per level, which will amount up to about, like, what's that, 60, 70 health at level 15 or something like that. Not really a crazy big change, but nice little bit of health per level. And then tactical sweep base damage is going up by 20, 15, 10 and 5. Okay, so just increasing the tactical sweep damage in the early game. I think this is to reflect on the nerfs that happened before, because they nerfed tactical sweep before, but it was more to do with the slow. The slow doesn't have a consistent percentage. It's now scaling down the percentage depending on how long the enemy champion has been slowed for. So increasing the damage, this will help her a lot in laning phase, help her poke a little bit more during the laning phase, and she'll still get the heal and everything from hitting her second ability. She'll still get the slow as well, but I think laning phase is where Camille can struggle at times. But honestly, I think Camille's laning phase is completely fine still, because you got, you know, true damage, you got the shield from your passive, you got now tactical sweep, which still is a lot of base damage, and it will obviously be increased when you build, you know, divine sunder and other items, and you still have her hook shot, which can allow her to escape to safety. But some nice buffs to Camille, very, very interesting indeed, making her a little bit tankier and also increasing her poke damage, especially during the laning phase. Doesn't affect her too much during the late game. Gwen. Now, Gwen is an interesting one. There was a few things with Gwen. I did feel like Gwen was relatively weak during the laning phase. I did feel like she was very, very squishy. I feel like this is happening with most champions now. It happened with Samira as well, where they bring out champions that are very, very squishy and don't have a lot of base health. So what they're doing with Gwen, they're increasing her base health by 50, which is a lot. A lot. I think most of these buffs are during for the laning phase for Gwen. 50 base health, which is crazy amount. The 1000 cuts maximum monster damage has been reduced, because we're seeing a lot of Gwen jungle at the moment. So that has been reduced ever so slightly, just to reduce her jungle clear. You got snip. So the initial snip base damage and the final snip base damage has both gone up. The initial one is going up by 2 at every rank, and the final snip goes up by 10 at every rank. So you basically get stacks. We have like purple bars underneath you. You get stacks when you auto attack, and when you use your first ability, basically snip once, then there's a bunch of snips in between, and then you have the final snip at the end. All them snips in between depends on how many stacks you have beforehand. So you could just do snip, and then it waits a little bit, and then you snip again, because you every single time you'll always have an initial snip and you always have a final snip. It doesn't matter how many stacks you have. The initial snip is at the start and the final snip is right at the end. So just maybe helping her a little bit during the laning phase again, you know, with the base health and also the snip damage. But this will help her in the late game as well, because the amount that's been increased is at every single rank. And the great thing is as well is that you always rank up snip first. That means that like a level 6 or level 7, you'll have max rank of snip, her first ability, which means that you'll be getting the extra 10 damage, an extra 2 damage from snip a lot earlier than expected. Nautilus, they are buffing again. I honestly feel like Nautilus is really, really strong right now. I don't know why they're buffing Nautilus again, but here we are, I guess. So Stagger Blow, stun duration. This is the passive. So this is when you auto attack a champion, you can root them. The root's gone from 0.75 seconds to 1.5 seconds to 1 second to 1.75 seconds. So it's basically a 0.25 increase, depending on what level you are. So at the early game, it'll go from 0.75 to 1 seconds, and then the late game will go from 1.5 seconds to 1.75 seconds. Cool. That means it just delays your CC combo a little bit, but it makes the CC combo even longer, basically. And it also reducing the cooldown of Dreadline. This is interesting. I felt like Dreadline was already on quite a low cooldown, to be honest, because every single time you're seeing Nautilus's use a hook to roam around, because the great thing with Nautilus hook is that when you hit it onto a terrain, the cooldown gets lowered. That means you could just roam around, use your Dreadline to roam around the map a lot quicker. So that means that the cooldown is going to be even lower for that, but also means it's going to be even lower to have the, you know, engage opportunity as well, because that's kind of where Nautilus's engage starts off with. I mean, sometimes you can use your ultimate to start off a team fight, but it's a lot better to start with your hook. But if you do, then obviously you have more opportunities now, because the cooldown has been reduced by 1 every rank. And obviously this doesn't include all the ability haste that you build with Nautilus, you know, Sally Seed Jar, Warmogs, you know, all these items as well. So crazy buffs to Nautilus again, and I'm kind of worried about Nautilus's position. I do think that Nautilus getting buffed over and over again might make him insanely strong. Yasuo is getting a lot of buffs this patch, not only to himself, but also you can see in the system item buffs, and also the item buffs, and also the system buffs, the rune buffs as well. Solari Chargeblade buff and lethal tempo buff. On top of that, Yasuo is also getting a buff. It's a little bit scary, not gonna lie to you. I'm a little bit scared. I might have to maybe play Yasuo once or twice. We'll have to see. Base attack damage going from 58 to 62. This will help him a lot during the laning phase. Most of the time with Yasuo, you just play safe. You just use your first ability during the laning phase. You just stay back, play passive, and you just do that, and then you just scale up into the mid and late game. But this definitely helps him a lot. It helps him a lot with trading as well, and means that his auto attacks and his abilities are going to do more damage. And the last breath base damage is going up by 50 in the early game, staying the same at rank 2, and then scaling up by 50 extra damage in the late game. So at level 5 you get this nice little damage bonus. At level 10 you get basically nothing, and then at level 15 you get a nice 50 damage bonus on the ultimate. Yeah, some interesting changes to Yasuo. This will definitely help him a lot during the laning phase. Like I said, you know, Solari Chargeblade being buff and also lethal tempo being buff. I know some people still run Conqueror on Yasuo, but I think that lethal tempo might be better. We'll have to wait and see, because the lethal tempo buffs are pretty crazy. I'm not gonna lie to you, they are extreme buffs. They are really good buffs. Right, on to champion nerfs. Ahri is our first one. SSS base heal on champion takedown. The heal has gone down ever so slightly. The base heal has gone down, and also its scaling with ability powers also gone down by 10%. I do think that the heal was a little bit too strong. I think Ahri has been a stable mid laner for a long time now in the meta. Very easy to play, very easy to understand, has a lot of healing, has the resets on her ultimate as well, so she has a lot of mobility. So I do feel like Ahri has been strong for a long time. So this makes complete sense. I totally understand this nerf. Like I said, ever since kind of the rework or the mini rework to Ahri, she has been a really stable, really solid mid lane champion. Ekko, they're just nerfing the Q damage to monsters. This has been, Ekko jungle has been strong for a long amount of time now. You know, it's still being played in competitive quite a lot. You go Infinity Orb, Death Cap, all these items, and Ekko jungle is insanely strong. You clear the jungle really quickly, especially because Time Rider, your first ability is AoE damage, and you can basically get 2 procs off your passive. So that means all you need to do is get 1 more auto attack, and you can easily proc your passive every single time. So it totally makes sense that they're nerfing the bonus damage to monsters on Time Rider. Maybe they needed to nerf the passive damage again. They already nerfed the passive damage before to monsters, but maybe they needed to nerf that again, because I'm not too sure if this is going to be enough. We'll have to wait and see. Haste Spike ability power ratio is going down from Evelynn. Evelynn is a really strong champion in lower elos. The higher up you get as Evelynn, if you're playing Evelynn, the higher up it goes, the harder it gets to play Evelynn, mainly because of players understand how to play around Evelynn. They understand how to track Evelynn more. The one powerful thing about Evelynn in lower elo is that you're invisible. Most players don't really understand that, and most people play aggressive, not really respecting Evelynn in a way. But like I said, the higher elo you go, the harder it gets to play Evelynn. But I think this is mainly to nerf lower elo. So hate spike ability power ratio from 45 down to 40%. Karma. So the Karma has been broken for so long. I've been asking for Karma nerfs for a long time, and finally they've come, but I'm not too sure if they're enough. I think the third ability getting nerfed is a big nerf, but I do feel like the shield power itself is still very strong, especially the empowered version. I do feel like it is really strong. Yes, the movement speed was strong on the third ability as well, and it's going down by 15%, which is a big number. So I do feel like this is a nice nerf, but I feel like the shield power itself, and especially with, like, you know, Imperial Mandate in the game, you start for Flowing Water, Ardent Sensor, all these items are so strong for Karma that she'll still be in a fine spot. And then the second ability, this is one where you can root a champion, basically getting increased by 2 seconds. So you can't be spamming that ability that much anymore. But 2 seconds don't really mean too much. You build so much ability haste anyway that you probably won't even feel the difference when it comes into the mid and the late game. Kassadin as well, again, another very strong champion. The second ability, Neverblade cooldown going up by 2 seconds. This is a big one. Basically what you do during a lane phase with Kassadin at the moment, because the Neverblade has such a long range, you just level 1, you start Neverblade, and all you do is you walk up to the laning phase. You basically don't attack the enemy champion at all. All you do is farm minions with Neverblade. You could trade with enemy champions a little bit, but Neverblade is so strong during the laning phase because it had quite low cooldown. You know, 8 seconds is fairly low cooldown, but now 10 seconds is going to be a little bit longer. But all you do is walk up to lane phase, use your second ability, farm minions. It's a very safe way to play Kassadin. You go with Fleet Footwork, so you heal every single time. Really safe way. You just wait until you get, you know, your Rod of Ages, your Seraph's Embrace, and then boom, you got into mid and late game, and then you're extremely strong, and you haven't been put under any threat at all during laning phase. I still think this will be a thing with Kassadin, but now the cooldown of Neverblade going up by 2 seconds, this means that you might lose a few minions during the laning phase. So it means that the scaling might be a little bit delayed, but obviously with Kassadin during laning phase, you can't really trade at all. So you just go Neverblade, level 1, walk up, farm minions, poke the enemy champions when you can, and then you just scale easily into the mid and the late game. And then next one is the Rift Walk damage. Going down. The base damage is staying the same. The ability power ratio is staying the same. The one thing that they're nerfing is the mana, so 1.5% of the mana. So I mean, Rod of Ages plus Seraph's Embrace will still be the go-to build for Kassadin anyway. They're just nerfing the damage ever so slightly with how much mana you gain, because you do gain a lot of mana. You know, Seraph's Embrace, Rod of Ages gives you a bucket ton of mana, so kind of makes sense in a way. But yeah, overall, really nice nerfs to Kassadin. I think Neverblade will definitely affect him a lot during the laning phase. Rift Rock damage, I don't think it will affect too much. I still think Kassadin being very mobile during the late game is his strong point, and he will still do a lot of damage with Rift Walk anyway. All right, on to Pyke. I believe these changes are a nerf to lane Pyke. We've still seen a little bit of lane Pyke. I haven't seen it too much, especially mid lane Pyke has been very strong, but a buff to support Pyke. So these are just adjustments just to basically move Pyke towards more towards the support. So Bone Skewer mana cost has gone down from 50 to 35. However, the Bone Skewer damage to non-champions has gone from 50% down to 25%. Like I said, this is mainly towards mid lane Pyke. What you do is mid lane Pyke is you push out the mid wave, you use your first ability. All you have to do is just really tap the ability. It does AoE damage to minions. You quickly push the lane, use your third ability to push the lane, and then when the enemy champion is under tower farming, all you can do with Reich is just roam around the map. You just use your second ability, turn invisible, roam around the map, and you can make plays around the map. This will nerf this by quite a lot, especially because the Bone Skewer damage to non-champions has been reduced by half. That means you can't push the lane out as much as what you could before. But they are reducing the mana cost, so that is quite nice, especially for support Pyke, where you're trying to hook and try and make the plays. Phantom, obviously you don't really make plays during the lane phase. You just basically tap the first ability in the mid lane. Sorry, all you do is tap the first ability. You don't really look for mid lane plays. You look to roam around the map and make plays more. And then Phantom Undertow cooldown is going down by quite a lot actually in the early game, making you know, you can make more plays maybe during the early game with Phantom Undertow, going down by 1.5 seconds at level 1, 1 second at level 2, 0.5 seconds at level 3, and then staying the same at level 4. So again, some nice buffs to Pyke with the Phantom Undertow cooldown, also the mana cost going down, but again, a mid lane Pyke nerf with the Bone Skewer damage to non-champions. Onto system and item buffs. Riftmaker is getting a buff. Very surprised with this, to be honest. One champion that has been insanely strong with Riftmaker is Akali. Akali did not get nerfed at all this patch. She's basically getting a buff because Riftmaker is getting a buff. Maybe this is because some champions are still not buying Riftmaker that maybe they should. I mean, the only real champions that are buying Riftmaker at the moment are I just said her name. Akali, sorry. Akali, Diana, and Kale. I think that's kind of the only 3 champions. There's maybe some other champions that could buy Riftmaker, but they're just buffing that, which is basically a buff to them 3 champions. Buff to Diana, buff to Kale, and a buff to Akali. So yeah, very, very interested to see if this maybe brings some more champions into buying Riftmaker. We'll have to wait and find out about that one. Right, the next 2 changes are the big ones for me. These are huge changes to ADC meta, to Yasuo, to Yone, and to pretty much any other like ADC champions. First one is Solari Chargeblade. Now, Solari Chargeblade has been out of the meta for ADCs for quite some time, especially because of the buff to Navori Quick Blades. The only champion that really uses Solari Chargeblade now as AD carry is Lucian. This would be quite a nice buff to Lucian, especially the ability haste going up. Attack speed won't really mean too much, but the attack speed is a crazy buff to some AD carries. So, excuse me, we might be seeing some Solari Chargeblade AD carries come back. You know, maybe Tristana, maybe Xayah, and maybe some other champions that have very, very low cooldowns. I think Xayah might be the main one that might benefit from this a lot, because ability haste she loves. Attack speed, you don't really need to build it that much because you have lethal tempo, but she might benefit a lot from the extra 10% attack speed. So this is a really, really nice change. I'll have to test this out on quite a few AD carries to see, you know, how it works and see if a Solari Chargeblade is going to be a real, you know, a nice buff, or if it's still going to stay the same with the likes of Xayah, because Xayah just goes Storm Razor, Infinity Edge, Navori Quick Blades. They're your 3 crit items. And then maybe you could build Solari Chargeblade as the last item now. I'm not really too sure. But the big reason why we might not build Solari Chargeblade is because of the lethal tempo buff. Attack speed per stack has gone from 6 to 12 as a melee and 3 to 9% as a range, to now 7 to 13%. So it's basically going up by 1% for everyone. 7 to 13% for a melee champion, and then 4 to 10% as a range champion. That's a pretty big buff by itself. You know, you getting 1% extra attack speed per stack is absolutely huge, because I think you get up to, is it 6 stacks? So you get up to 6% extra attack speed when you get up to you know, when you get up to 5 or 6 stacks. However, you also have the maximum stack bonus going up by 10%. The maximum stack bonus has gone from 30% up to 40%. So even though they buff Solari Chargeblade, you give that 10%, you also give that ability haste, but you're also buffing lethal tempo at the same time. And the reason why AD carries like Xayah, trying to think who else, like Tristana, for example, the reason why these champions don't buy attack speed is because how strong lethal tempo is. And they're buffing lethal tempo even more, especially the maximum stack bonus. The extra attack speed has now gone up to 40%. 40%! It's nuts. It's so nuts. So really, really crazy change for lethal tempo. I think this is going to be a crazy buff to AD carries. It's going to be really nice. You know, maximum stack bonus going from 30 to 40% is crazy. You know, you can go all the way up to 40% now on lethal tempo. Cool. I mean, it's a pretty nice buff. You know, I'm not going to lie. Pretty nice buff to lethal tempo. Solari Chargeblade buff is very, very nice. We'll have to test it on some champions. Lethal tempo is amazing. The last thing to talk about is system and item nerfs. They're nerfing both the support items. I think this is completely fair. I think ever since the support items have come out, the support items have been very, very strong. The Relic Shield, basically the item owner gold gained per charge consumed, has gone from 135 to 120%. So this is basically when you last hit a minion with Relic Shield, you got 135% of the gold, and your AD carry got 100% of the gold, or your dual lane partner got 100% of the gold. Now you only get 120% of the gold instead of 135%. I think Relic Shield was by far stronger than Spectral Sickle because you got so much gold. And like I said, at times you even got more gold than your AD carry. You can see in competitive games as well. You know, Relic Shield is so powerful. So I'm glad this is getting nerfed. And the Spectral Sickle is the other one as well. The gold gained per charge consumed has gone from 30 gold down to 25 gold. This is basically when you poke enemy champions, the amount of gold that you get has gone from 30 down to 25. So this will slightly delay the upgrades of the support items as well, because you need to gain 500 gold to get the support item ranked up. The other big thing is obviously the support item bug at the moment where you go double support item, and sometimes you can get 200% of the bonus gold. And also I just think double support item is completely broken anyway. Most tournaments have basically restricted teams to only one support item per team. I think this will be in the next patch. The big thing is that this is only a first look. This doesn't include every single change, so there might be some other changes in the patch notes, which obviously we will go through, and hopefully there's a bug fix in there, or hopefully there's some sort of restriction in there which will only allow one support item per team. But yeah, that is pretty much everything. 20 minutes on the dot. Really nice run through. I'm really looking forward to this patch. Actually, there's a lot of champions to try. You know, I can finally maybe play some Gwen, bring out a video on that. Nautilus is going to be fun. Yasuo is going to be really cool, especially with Yone with the Solari Chargeblade buffs, Riftmaker buffs, which is going to be awesome. Lethal tempo buffs. It's going to be a fun patch. I'm really looking forward to it. Hopefully you all are as well. Like I said, this patch is going to be coming out Tuesday or Wednesday next week, depending on your time zone. So stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for more content, and I'll see you in the next Wilder video. Peace.